let's change the music. I'm just gonna put it on something random. We'll do that one. Welcome. Okay. Welcome. It is Halloween night, and with my busy schedule, and honestly, this month was kind of shit to me. I decided we're just gonna do a nano thing. My friend is late. He's having PC problems. So, but that's fine. That's kind of why I did the hour ahead, because, you know, we got an hour to nano. And if it's already the November 1st for you, how is your nano going so far? If you're going into day 2. Let me, hold on. I can't type. There we go. When you type, I wrote type. Ready? Wow. Wow. Okay. He is new to StreamYard, and also, excuse me, not he. I never remember how to say Bungle's pronouns correctly, but Bungle is new to StreamYard, so we'll probably do a couple of like quick checks when they first get in, and also they are new to Nano, so that is going to be a good experience for them. I think you say it Zer, I think. I don't know. I've actually not heard Bungle say it out loud to me, and I'm always guessing how to say it correctly. But we'll wait. I mean, we're just gonna chill like normal. How's everyone's day going? If it's Halloween for you, did you celebrate Halloween? Are you still celebrating Halloween? I have blankie because it's a little bit cold. We have finally switched seasons, words, in the desert. It is now cold. Well, sort of. It's still kind of like warm during the day. Like, that's our fall. We don't have like a traditional fall. It's just that it's hot and hot and hot, and then suddenly when the sun goes down, it's like 30, 40 degrees, and then the sun comes up and we're like in the 80s, 90s. Actually, there was still, was it last week? It may have been last week where we had a morning where it was like 40, upper 40s, or maybe somewhere in the 30s. I don't remember, but it was like cold, and then the sun came up, and by like noon it was almost 100. It was like 90 something. So yeah, that's fall here in the desert. So we just have hot, very hot, and then can't make up your mind, and then cold. So yeah. But uh-oh, I'm pressing buttons. Stab it. But I did something interesting that doesn't necessarily fall into Halloween, but falls into November 1st, which is the first day of Dia de los Muertos, and I actually created an ofrenda, or an altar, for the first time. It's not the best and I definitely have ideas for next year to make it better. But I was glad. I've been wanting to do it for a while. I have a couple of pieces I'm going to reuse, other pieces that I'm not going to reuse. And oh, here they are. Hold on. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Hello.
Yay, I can hear you.
Oh, this is nice. You've got like some jazziness going on. I look like I'm in a closet somewhere.
You are good. You're good. Trust me. There are some people that like use StreamYard on their phone and stream on their phone for like bigger events. So.
Well, hello. How's everything going for? It's still Halloween. Yes, happy Halloween.
It's still Halloween. I'm gonna lower the sound just a little bit more because you're soft, but that's fine. Okay.
Oh, I think I can turn my microphone up a bit. There. How's that?
That's good. So, how are you thinking for what your plans are going to be for Nano?
So currently my plan for Nano is so on our YouTube channel we want to start doing like a creepypasta dramatic reading kind of thing, and so for Nano I want to write our first creepypasta.
That sounds like you guys. Oh shoot, I forgot what my command is. No, fail me. I think it's... Is it that one? Question mark? We'll see if the bot recognizes it or not. I'm not a good friend. I don't remember my command. I made a command for your guys' link and then I don't remember what my command is.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, that's cool. Don't worry about it.
Now I have to look it up because I'm determined.
We haven't posted anything in months. This is the first stream I've been a part of literally for months, while all the drama of moving out of state, then not moving out of state, and then moving into a new house all started happening.
Oh yeah, I mean that's a lot. And even though you didn't like move across the country, it's still a whole thing to just move houses.
It's like I still was prepping to move across the country, had like all the boxes ready to go, had everything packed, had all the hotels reserved to travel and everything up to Oregon, and then it just didn't happen.
There we go. Worked for Twitch.
Check that out.
There we go. Now I think everyone else is working. Yes. Okay.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that's so cool.
I just couldn't remember what I labeled the command.
I know, we have such a long name. I actually just got us a new domain name because blunderandbungle.com was too long, so I just got blunbun.com.
I thought you were gonna be like B&B, but then I realized there has to be a company that already has that.
Yeah, especially with all the Airbnbs out there, it's really hard to not get mistaken for a bed and breakfast.
That is very true. So are you thinking your creepypasta is gonna be like just exactly 50K and more like novella style length, or are you going to make it bigger or shorter?
I mean, I don't have like a really solid plan as far as length goes or anything. I figure I know how I want it to start, I know how I want it to end, and I'm just going to see if that's going to, filling in everything in the middle is going to get anywhere near 50,000. I've got my fingers crossed, but we'll see how that goes.
Hey, that's usually where I jump into things. It's like I know where to start, or sometimes I don't even know exactly where I'm starting. I like know something in the middle, and then I know the end, and then I'm just like, I'll figure it out.
And so, since you've probably already been talking about your plans, though, if I could get just a brief recap, what is it that you're doing for Nano?
Yeah, so I'm gonna continue working on Project Sci-Fi Romance because I'm about, let's see, what am I officially at? I'm at 41K, or a little
Oh,
bit
wow.
over. Yeah, and I started that in March. So I'm hoping to, like, at the end, my hard deadline is to end in March, so it's a year. I would like to end by this actual year, but I'm as like a soft deadline, but I don't think I'm gonna hit that just because this month itself was kind of chaotic for me.
Yeah.
But it's because it's a romance, sci-fi romance-ish. Like, I'm not sure which one I'm leaning more into, but it doesn't need to be like 90K like my fantasy was that I finished last year.
So in that case, would you say, like, percentage-wise, where do you think you are in it so far?
I know for sure I'm like somewhere in the middle where like the fun and games situation is. Because I'm focusing more on the relationship, or like if you're looking at the steps for what is romancing the beats, I'm definitely more in the like build relationship part of the romance and like pushing them together and they start to see things before I like pull the rug and they hate each other again.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. And then of course, because it's a romance, I mean it's gonna end on a happy ever after, because it's not a romance if it doesn't do that. So
But I suppose there still could be a romantic twist somewhere.
yes, but then you can't label it a romance. If you do, romance readers will kill you.
oh, there's rules.
Yes. If you label your book a romance and it does not have either a happily ever after or a happily for now, like there's like gonna be like a book 2 where you'll get the happily ever after kind of situation, then it's not a romance. And if you label it that, romance readers will kill you and you will feel it.
Okay, but what if you're like building up for like a certain pairing the entire book, and then the twist is boom, the one of the people in this romance turned out to be the evil doer of the galaxy, and now the romance has to suddenly shift to somebody who pops in and now has to help guide the universe to the actual proper destiny.
That's fine as long as there is a romance that is happy at the end. Like if you switch and bait the romance and like the best friend, like if it's like a love triangle-esque kind of situation where like let's say Star Wars, like instead of Rey falling in love with Kylo at the end and we like bait and switch and it ends up being Finn, like all the fan fiction is, like that's fine. You can still label that a romance. But you have to definitely make sure you're putting in elements of like, why would Finn actually be a good person for her to be? You have to like slowly like background weed in that relationship while you're working on the main relationship that you're like gonna bait and switch later. Like that works. That's why you can have like dark romance and horror romance, which is starting to like slowly become a thing.
Horror romance. Oh, that sounds exciting.
I don't understand it, but I've been hearing about it.
So I've got to see. Are there rules to this now? How do you do a horror romance?
Again, the main point is that you have to have that happily ever after or the happy for now. And usually the happy for now is just because you're gonna have like multiple books with the same love interest character, like the love interest in the main character. So they don't like save the day in the first book, and they don't like maybe solidify their relationship, but like the next book is when you're gonna solidify the relationship and they're getting married and they save the world. Like that's fine usually, but they have to have the happily ever after or the happy for now, or it is not a romance. Like my dark fantasy that I wrote last year that I finished, I tell people it's not a romance, even though I talked a lot about like a love interest and main character. I told people it's a love story because there is no happily ever after at the end. I do something very horrible, and I did cry while writing it, or at least tear up. There is VOD footage of me doing that at the end, or like towards the end of the book, where it's just
no.
it's not a romance because there is no happily ever after.
Wow.
But it's a love story. I have a very at least I think it's a good, like, realistic love story, but because it's a dark fantasy and I wanted to make it really gritty, and I put my main character through the ringer. I feel so bad for her sometimes that the way I had to end it would have not allowed it to be a romance. So I was just like, that's fine.
Oh, that's one of my favorite things though, is building up a character and then putting them through so much terrible, awful things that they just end up this like horrible, tortured shell of the happy person that they started as.
Yeah, she was really bad. Like, I physically, mentally, and emotionally tortured her in the book. She lost family members in the book.
Oh, you pulled that card.
Like, it was really, like, it was, when I was thinking of this story and I started writing it, the idea of it being, like, nice and, like, the couple is gonna be together at the end, like, it was a very good refreshing from being in this, like, very dark world where, like, I was very mean and, like, there was fighting and blood and everything, to, like, happy space, like, lovey stuff, and really it's just, like, internal
happy space
problems.
Love.
Yes, happy space love with no humans. There are no humans in my universe. They do not exist.
No humans. So normally you end up with like interesting D&D campaigns where they say there's like no non-humans, but you're actually setting up rules to be no humans. Everything
so nobody
has to
like
be
us.
Alien or robot.
Yes. So there are like they're all humanoid-esque kind of aliens, at least the ones that I've created up to this point.
So at least with physiology, sure, that's like understandable to us as humans.
Yes, but I'm definitely playing on the, like, you know, weird penal things and like,
so I'm like
stuff.
picturing, like, you know, space tentacle monsters, you know, Cthulhu's from Jupiter coming in and squirming all over the place.
No, but I have like a vague idea of an alien species I could create that would have like a tentacle-esque stuff, but I'm not there yet. That all depends. That all depends if someone wants to buy my book and I write this series that I actually want to write.
Everybody, go buy this book. This sounds amazing.
But yeah, I'm just like, I didn't officially decide until after I wrote it a little bit, and I was like, you know what, I don't want to put humans in the book.
Humans are gross and boring.
Yeah. I kind of also just wanted to be able to make my own rules and not be like chained down to what people assume like human stuff is able to. And I didn't want to write the classic like sci-fi or the romantic sci-fi or sci-fi romance, however you word them, where it's just like human effing alien. And like that's because I read a couple of those in research, and they're really quick reads. Some of them are crap, and then some of them are okay. I don't think I
Kirk
read
goes
one
to
that was
space
good.
and boinks everyone.
Yeah, like I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be able to have like a good sci-fi with like good romance and have it together. Have like a real plot, not the plot just be sex.
So, like, since you bring up sex, one of the things that I think would be really interesting to explore in that kind of like a sci-fi environment is like species that might have more than two genders.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
like some real I'm trying to remember what the name of the book was, but there was one that kind of explored that concept, that there was a race of aliens similar to fungus, because fungus here on Earth has like 20 genders, that there's like different combinations of like bits and pieces from each one that are necessary to actually reproduce.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like had more of a community romance involvement in order to, continue their reproduction, which was quite an interesting take.
That is interesting. I didn't think about that, but I definitely have I definitely have a wide variety of every culture has its different acceptance of either sexuality or gender or mixtures of both, or like weird combinations to make it more realistic, where like not everyone is the same. Again, to differentiate it from humanity, where we're still very locked into many things, even though we're trying to change, but have it where having someone who is non-binary is not a big deal in a specific society, because they've been over that like a million years ago, and it's just common. Or to have a society where maybe gender is a little bit more rigid, but sexuality is like whatever you want,
It's for some reason that reminded me a bit of it was actually a Godzilla cartoon that there was like aliens that came to help people fight Godzilla, but they're like the different aliens that were all trying to help fight Godzilla all had such different, I mean, obviously they kind of played into a lot of tropes. There was like kind of like the big warrior race that was all like, we run in, we kill everything, and we're all about war and science and technology.
Yeah.
And then there was like this one race that was very like elvish, that they were kind of like tall and slender, but they were very, very religious. Like everything they did was very much sort of a hierarchical sect kind of thing, that you would think that wouldn't really mesh well in a sci-fi environment, but then when you find out what it is they're worshiping, it fits the Godzilla universe very, very well. So you're like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely taking inspiration from like Star Trek. I think I might also take a little bit from Star Wars later, but right now, especially this first book, is very like influenced by Star Trek, because I want to do like the standalone series, like a lot of romance books do, where you don't necessarily have to read every book in order, but every book has it centers either around like a group of friends or siblings or like a town or something, and then you just follow different characters within that specific requirement that you've done. And I want to do that, where all the romances will take place on a medical space station, and in the background what caused this first problem, and will be like somewhat referenced over time, but it won't be the main plot of any specific book, but it's just going to be a string, is going to be a war in the background. like a
Oh,
galactic
I
war.
love that. I love
So,
that.
but the main point will be like the romance of whatever the characters are, that there'll be references to the war and like working on the medical station and, you know, thinking
Yeah, where
about.
the politics are just happening in the background. Like, it's
Mhm.
not what the story is about, but it's something that the characters have to deal with. Like, especially on a medical station, you can totally see that, depending where the station is located, everything can be totally fine for a while, but suddenly the war reaches kind of close, and suddenly they're just inundated with like a whole bunch of like, you know, everybody's suddenly busy, there's so many hurt people, and everything has to be done immediately, and everybody that used to have time to deal with relationships and things, suddenly relationships have to go on the back burner to deal with the crisis that's
Yeah.
happening. And then once the crisis is over, then how does everybody feeling after having kind of buried emotions to deal with that? And oh yeah, that can be very,
Yeah,
very
like this
cool.
one I think is the most influenced by the war, which when I go back and like actually do my first draft, because I call this a zero draft, I have to put a little bit more plot of like the war and stuff. I'm focusing more on like the romance and the general plot of the book, but this where my main character and my love interest, they've been friends forever. They both secretly do have feelings for each other, but the whole point, because the trope is friends to lovers and marriage of convenience, is that she is half a species that's part of this like federation, but I call it a confederacy because I like the idea of that better, and I didn't want to copy.
The Federation.
Yeah, she's like half of one of the planets of like a big part of the confederacy, and then half of the empire who has now started this war. And because the confederacy is kind of panicking and worried, they're deporting everybody who has who is either part of this planet or has like heritage or something. But the way to get around that is if you're already married to someone who's part of the confederacy or have like a solid tie, then you can stay. So the two friends get married because they just moved to the medical station and it's her dream job.
Prove your
she's
loyalty.
working there.
Marry a member of the Confederacy.
Yeah, so that's kind of like the whole point of like to save his friend, he has to marry her. But they both harbor relationships, and then there's other like alien like genetics and things that are happening affecting their relationship. Because they're both half of something separate, and each part is like manipulating this relationship. And I'm having a lot of fun with random sex and stuff like that in this book too. This is definitely like an adult book.
Oh, I mean that's totally that's fine. But what I really like is the point that you made there, that having that it's not just sci-fi and aliens, but there's already been an obvious intermingling of different species created like half breeds, quarter breeds, and all those sorts of things, that you now have genetics from multiple planets mixing. And because we kind of look at it when you deal with, like here I'm, half Hispanic, half European, it's a mutt of a whole bunch of different things. And when you're talking about that just in the reference of one planet, that already has a lot of complicated connotations. Trying to now blend the heritage and viewpoints of not just, of different cultures of one species, but entirely different worlds that each have very different histories and possibly even different tech levels depending on how long they've been spacefaring species. Like this can have huge impacts where you can have like one, side of the family that can still feel like, oh, you know what, we like all species out there, but let's be real, we've been in outer space for, thousands or a million years. They just barely got to space, maybe 50 years ago. They're not at our level.
Vulcans.
So that make it very interesting,
Oh, yeah.
Thanksgiving party with the family.
Yep. I mean, I have hopes of like very complicated, like my like story diary is very put in with all kinds of things. Like I have the commander of the space station is part of this species of this planet that is like reptilian, but I'm not just having them be like a generic reptile. I'm gonna have references to like crocodiles and alligators and caiman, and have those influences of like different cultures within a planet, and how could something like that interact, where it's like the caiman, type of people from that planet are like maybe smaller than like the crocodile-esque type of people. Like have those. I have one where it's referencing like bears on this planet, where you have different species or different heritages and species within the planet. And my brain is making this story the futures of this can be very complicated.
Oh, definitely. So this is a very space opera, like a
Yes.
old school like Flash Gordon kind of thing, where they would have like the lion men and the horsemen and the different like all kind of with lightsabers and beam guns and rockets.
Yes, I'm definitely trying to take those influences from like Flash Gordon and Battlestar Galactica and Star Wars, like everything that I grew up watching, like original to like some remakes, because I mean, I didn't love the Battlestar Galactica remake, but whatever. I don't want to get in fights. But like trying to take a lot of those and inspired, but then switch them up. And I read Winter's Orbit, which they're having their second book come out soon, I think. Yes, their second book is coming out. But they wrote this sci-fi romance that is kind of like what I'm doing, where it's like there's a sci-fi plot, but there's also like a good romance, and it's a gay romance. And it was really good. There was a lot of good character development within both individual male characters, but the world, where they had an easy way to identify, and it wasn't overwhelming. If you're non-binary or female or male, there was these little things where every so often the main character, he would reference scenes, something, because they wore like beads or certain jewelry and different material would tell you like what the person's gender was, and they would sometimes reference like, oh, they're wearing a wooden bead, so or I'm looking for something so that I can be respectful. But they even had the reference where, because they're in an intergalactic marriage, I guess, a very like marriage of convenience kind of thing, and the main character is talking to the love interest, is his sister, and their culture does not use the same stuff to differentiate gender, and the main character is having a hard time knowing, is she for sure a she, or is she not? Like it's so detailed, like the book, and it's very not over and like in your face, like some books that try to be inclusive, where it's like, I'm being inclusive, look at all this stuff. Like it's very like, it was very natural, and I loved it, and I can't wait for her for their second book to come out. I can't remember if she identifies as a she or not, but their second book takes place in the same world with like different characters, and it was really good, and I can't wait for the next one. But I kind of liked that idea of like, you could use the fact that it's sci-fi and you don't have to have the same restrictions.
Yeah.
Because they also don't have humans in the world, or at least not overtly. They're obviously human-like. They are described very like human, but they're all from different planets.
Very cool. I've got to apologize because I'm so not used to having a headset with a microphone anymore, and I keep banging my microphone
Oh, you're fine. I do
every
that sometimes. I do that.
every time I have my hand in front of my face. I just catch myself going thump. But no, I was just going to say that's really fascinating because in fiction, fantasy, and especially sci-fi, you can explore that concept of outward representation to say that if you identify a particular way, then in this particular culture, because obviously here in the real world people are going to identify themselves however they want. You can't look at somebody and say they're dressed this way or they wear this colors and that means they are identify as this gender or sexuality or anything like that. But that's absolutely something that can be explored in the context of a fantasy species, and then be able to go deeper into that and go, all right, if you have a culture that has always expressed themselves outwardly to identify who they are, how do they respond when they meet somebody that does not conform to this same presentation of identity? And that's, yeah, I can see how that would just be like an amazing thought experiment to write about.
They did a really good job of interweaving that, but it not taking away from the plot, which was kind of like ended up being like a murder-esque mystery situation.
Nice.
But it also didn't take away from the romance either. If anything, it enriched it because the main character was very wanting to be supportive of his husband because the main character is a royal. Like I said, it's a marriage of convenience. They're like bringing two cultures. But the love interest was in a previous royal marriage, and that's kind of where the like murder mystery, because that partner had died under suspicious situations. And of course later you find out what exactly happened, but it tells you that at the beginning of the book, or even in the back of the book, I think, maybe, I don't know, but it's like right at the beginning, like first chapter, you find out they're like literally at the funeral. But even then, at that point too, you are introduced to the love interest and his dichotomy of his culture does like funeral services differently, and he's trying to like wrestle with like his feelings and some like not great stuff that actually happened in that relationship, but wanting to be respectful, and then his weird like situation within this like politicized relationship, and then culture, and that's literally, I think, actually the second chapter, or maybe just the second scene. I don't remember if it's two scenes in one chapter, but there's that, and then you learn about the love interest, and he's like one of the like younger princes, and he's kind of an F-boy. And he like suddenly has to get married because the Empress is like, no, this murder happened, or death, or whatever. We still need this political marriage to work, so it's your turn.
Oops.
Party
days are over.
Yeah. The Empress is like, you don't mind being with a guy, so now you're gonna marry this person.
Huh.
So I really liked that, and I kind of wanted to take, I guess, a little bit of like the cultural part of the inspiration from that, where it's like, you know what, I'm just gonna do what I want, and make the universe how I want to do it.
Oh man, that's I know from my experience, I have literally too many ideas for stories I want to do. That's one of the reasons I'm having to focus on make something that's actually going to be useful to our the YouTube channel, because otherwise I will just spend years writing who knows what that might never end up even getting done.
Yeah. But it's interesting, it's freeing, and uh I like the freedom. Like, I've already thought out my second book within this series and talked to a couple of like writing group people where it's like, is this appropriate for me to do or is it not? Because I wanted to do pretty much, it's like a lesbian romance of like Grump and Sunshine trope, and it's the friend of the main character, his friend, who is a different species from him, and she has her own problems. So I'm like, yeah, as long as I'm being like respectful, and that's what some of the like my other writing friends were saying too. They're like, as long as you're not doing like she finds out she's a lesbian and it's like a learning situation, and if it's just like, it's obvious that she's already, and that has no point within it, which it doesn't, that wasn't the idea, then it's fine, because I'm not stepping on like toes then.
Yeah, I can totally see that being an issue when you're like, somebody's like, it's hard to accept a story that's the journey of discovery from the point of view of somebody not going through like a similar journey. I guess I'm not sure how fair that is, but
yeah, I think maybe in the future it wouldn't be a problem, but right now, yeah. And that's what I was kind of worried about. I'm like, there's no discovery. Like, in the first book, like, she's making out with like other people in like club. Like, it's just like slightly referenced, like background. Like, it's not like they're all adults. Like, she's been her society is open.
club
Like, it doesn't matter.
scene, it's fine. Everybody's just like, psh, go for it.
That is actually interesting, because I've never been to a club or a bar, and writing these things, I'm literally heavily pulling off of stuff I've seen on TV.
I guess that makes a lot of sense. One, the town around here doesn't really have a decent club scene, and two, last 2, maybe 3 years has not been the best time for going out and hanging around bars anyway. So, but at the same time, it kind of makes it interesting to see like what your interpretation of that lifestyle is. Like what is like what is it that you expect, that if you could fantasize this club up and be like, they walk into it, well then, as somebody that hasn't experienced a lot of that scene, like how do you feel that would go in like like a fantasy setting?
Yeah, that's, if anything, that's been the hardest part. Not like making up things, not like making like things that are slightly realistic, but because I didn't party in college, like I wasn't, or even in high school, really. Not that you should be going to clubs if you're underage, but like I wasn't that person. I was a very boring person. So I'm like, I don't have a point of reference except for
responsible TV. Is the appropriate word.
Responsible, aka boring. My husband has more experience with that stuff than I
do. Well, no worries. I can tell you there's at least my experience, one, I wasn't a big partier either, but most of the partying that I got to see wasn't really in this country, and a lot of it just ended up
Ah,
being kind of scary rather than fun anyway.
oh, really?
I mean, when you're in a place thinking, "Oh, this is cool. Yeah, we can go dance," and suddenly somebody turns around and is yelling at everybody to get down because somebody's pulling out a gun. You're like, "Oh, oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm on the wrong part of this town."
Yep. 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 Yep.
That was Juarez during all of the cartel weirdness that was going on there.
Yeah. I have very few experiences of being in Mexico, and that's mostly because as it got worse, my dad was like, "We're just never gonna go back across."
Let's not. Let's totally not.
Yeah. So it is 11:50, so I'm thinking we do a startup timer, a 15-minute like get in the mood, and then that way will push us into Nano, and then we can start longer sprints.
Okay.
As we've talked and discussed and chilled. I don't know what I want to pick. I'll just pick this one.
I love your soundtrack. Oh my gosh, this is just like coolest chill music.
It's from oh gosh, what is it again? Chillhop. Oh shoot, I should know this.
Yeah, it's kind of a lo-fi kind of thing, huh?
Yeah, it's they actually are really, I found them through someone else's like YouTube video of like reliable DMCA like free music. Yeah, Chillhop. They have a YouTube channel, but also if you go to the website, you can sign up as a creator and make an account, and they give you a list of just lo-fi-esque kind of music that you're able to use as long as you credit them correctly. And you
Nice.
can use it for videos or for streams, and they have breakdowns of like how to credit for YouTube and how to credit for Twitch, and it was very nice, and everything that the guy said in the video was exactly true of like how like easy it is for them. So, because my pretzel rock does not work on StreamYard, unfortunately. So what I normally do is we keep lo-fi track going because I write to music and it's just easier than me having to like turn things off and turn things back on than what I already have to do. But if you need to mute to write, that's perfectly fine.
Okay.
And that also goes for anybody that's in the chatties, whether you're talking or not later. But yes, and we'll be muted. Do you know how to mute yourself, Bungle?
I think so. I think I can just...
Yes, yeah. And you can turn off your camera and it will just have a avatar if you need to like get up and leave or something.
Like, yeah, otherwise I'm just going to be sitting here typing a lot, staring at it like, did I just write that? I'm just picking my nose and forgetting that I've got a camera on me.
Yes, or like if you're uncomfortable writing, some people are uncomfortable writing during sprints on camera, so they'll turn off the camera. So, like when John does get home, I'll wait for us to be on a sprint, and I'll probably turn off the camera so that he can come in here and grab something and say hi, and then be done, because he knows we're streaming late, but his work camper is also in this room, so we keep the hospital clothes separate from our regular clothes.
Oh, it's smart.
Nope, that's not what I want. I'm used to being by myself. How does this look? Oh, it does look good with.
Wow.
I haven't used this function with other people yet, just with myself, but it does look good. Okay, but we'll do this right now. Actually, yeah. Okay, we'll do this first.
Just flying all over the screen. I love it.
Okay, so we will be muted during that, and there is no, there's no music for this one. It'll just be a thunderclap at the end, signifying that the sprint is over.
Got it. Got it. And that's when we know to unmute. Okay.
Yes. So let's go ahead. So we're gonna do 15 minutes, get in the mood, bring us into Nano, and yeah, so 1, 2, 3, and go.
15 minutes?
That was 15 minutes, yeah.
Oh,
Did it
my
seem fast or
gosh.
long?
Oh, it seemed fast. I barely got a page done.
Yeah, I usually use the 15 minutes to like read back what was the last thing I wrote and then just start and figure out either like what if I finished a chapter, like figure out what my next chapter or next scene is going to be, or just figure out how I want to continue, and that's usually how I function with that. What is the button I'm wanting to use? There we go. My internet decided to be weird for a second. That threw me off.
Oh. Yeah, I'm still getting used to my new internet also.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the connector I use and maybe I need to buy a new one, but it will like disconnect even though it's connected into my laptop, and the cable is connected into the converter to my laptop just fine, but it will disconnect and then like the Wi-Fi will connect.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you got a wire and everything, and it still does weird things. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's only been doing that for like a month or something now. So I wonder if it's just like the plug that I use to convert, because I don't have like an Ethernet port on my laptop, so I have to use one of those other things. I'm wondering if maybe I need a new one or something. I don't know.
I always say try changing the cheapest part first. So, like maybe the cable, and if the cable ends up still giving you weird things, then change out a more expensive part.
Well, I don't think it's the Ethernet cable, because if I disconnect the cable and plug it back in, it still won't connect. But if I unplug the whole like connector thing from my laptop and then plug it in, then it will connect. And I'm just like, so I think that's why I think it's that, which it's not that expensive.
Oh, that's good troubleshooting. But anyway, so
how did you do besides saying that you didn't get paid?
Yeah, I did. I felt like I got no progress. I literally, one of the hardest things when you're starting a writing project is getting that first sentence and then the first paragraph down. So I always end up writing something and I delete it. Then I write something and I delete it.
No.
I write something.
You just gotta keep going. You gotta keep going.
I'm just like, oh, this just doesn't sound natural, because I'm also sort of trying to make it from the standpoint that it's sort of prose, it's not exactly novel. And so I'm like reading it and then telling myself, okay, how would this actually sound out loud?
Yeah. Well, I always say to whatever words you get is more than what you had before, so it's good, because I don't keep track. I keep track of like monthly word count, but I don't keep track of per session, which a lot of people do. And for Nano, you're supposed to do, because that's how you keep track on the website if you use the website.
Yep.
But I always tell people, don't necessarily focus on the word count, what you have. Just write and just keep going. Because if anything, that's how I've learned with like my dyslexia, that if I go back and start changing things or think about it too much, then I don't actually go forward, because then I spiral into like, I'm horrible, bad, I don't know how to spell, like this is poop. But if I just keep going, then eventually I get an actual work.
Yeah, I kind of end up in the same way, where I just end up going, oh, why did I use that word? I hate that word. Like, delete that word. Use this word instead. And then I nitpick every little thing. And then just, like you said, it's a spiral. It just ends up suddenly, what I spent 15 minutes writing, I've spent like 3 hours critiquing and just rearranging and changing, but I don't have anything new. It's still that same one page that's now taken hours of re-editioning.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend don't, while you're writing, don't go back and look then. Just keep going. Even if you think something's bad, be like, I'll come back to that. That's later Bungle's problem, not like Bungle right now problem.
Future Bungle can worry about that.
Yes, yes. And I've literally said that on stream before too. And it's like that's later Dolores' problem, not my Dolores. Later Dolores may hate past Dolores, but that's their problem.
But I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. And then like when I go back to like just read a couple things, maybe I'll fix a couple of quick words where like at the end of the stream I was just tired and I didn't know what the hell I was spelling, and it has like the red line under it, and I'll just fix it quickly. I'll check knows what I'm trying to say, or like add a couple of words. Like when I was reading back, I put the main character's best friend's name instead of the love interest's best friend, and I was talking about the love interest's friend, so like I changed that name, but then that's all I did. Like anything else that I could have changed, I don't. I'm like, nope, that's for the first edit of the drafts problem, not zero draft problem. Zero draft problem is just get the words in.
So I've got a question for you from the editing standpoint, since you mentioned like, oh yeah, it's got the red line, so gotta do something about that. From the now obviously we're not sponsored or anything like this, but I just wanted to ask, do you use anything like Grammarly, for instance?
Yes, I do. I did pay for it, and I've recently had to like pull back on it, but it is something that in college my disability advisor had introduced me to, and for like my papers and stuff, and I still do use it now, just to like double check things. I also have, I don't use it as often because Grammarly does have a plugin. That's why I use it more. But I also have, and I've heard mixed things about it from people. Oh, good Lord. Where is it at? I'm like totally just looking past it. I know I am. Oh, there it is. Pro Writing Aid. I have used that a couple times.
Pro Writing Aid. So is that
it
like
seems
something
kind of
similar?
more complicated, but
So what is the difference then between that and like Grammarly?
they're both editing software, but Pro Writing Aid advertises itself as like a more like sophisticated tool, I guess is what I would say. If you were looking at like the commercials and like how it's set up, there's definitely a lot more going on with like the UI and like the interface of Pro Writing Aid, which is kind of overwhelming, and I haven't fully figured it out, and part of me just doesn't kind of want to either, because even though visually compared to that, Grammarly might be a little bit more simple, it's at least like gotten the work done and like helped me with certain things, and then always giving it to a live person will then help like solidify that stuff too, with like beta readers or alpha readers, or eventually when I get a literary agent, because I'm gonna be positive about it, my
Definitely.
agent will read it, and then editor. So like I just need Grammarly to like catch all my dyslexic mistakes, and then I use like a reader tool to like actually read it to me, because I'll find more mistakes when somebody else reads it to me versus I read the same thing, because my dyslexic brain will read over the same sentence and be like, oh, that's correct, and then someone else will read it to me and I'm like, oh, actually that's not correct.
Oh my gosh, I deal with that all the time. They literally will like completely mess up a word up. But even when I go back and read that sentence like 5, 6, 7 times, like my brain automatically fixes it to what I think should be there, even though my eyes are seeing that it's not right.
Yeah, and we're kind of hardwired to do that as people too, like in general. That's why there's all those like random stuff on social media where it's like, you're a genius if you can read this paragraph, and like there's just like strategic words taken out, and but a lot of people can
Oh,
still read those things. And
yeah, like
actually, dyslexic people or people who are like within that like spectrum do have, actually, depending on where you're at, actually not that hard of a time to read it, because our brain doesn't process words the same way.
like I saw something like that once, that it was like it was a paragraph that literally said that your brain allows you to read this even though none of these words in this paragraph are spelled correctly.
Yep, yep, yep.
And it's like, as long as the first letter, the last letter, and like certain strategic letters in the word are in the right place, then your brain automatically goes, oh, it's this word.
Yep.
And yeah, I was like, I always find stuff like that. It's really, really fascinating. And yeah, that does make sense when you put it like that, as to why, when you, especially when you're the one that wrote it, and you know, either use the wrong word or just a misspelling of a word, that your brain just continues. It's almost sort of like like my brain automatically will filter a lot of web slang nowadays, to where like I know where a lot of people end up being bothered by acronyms and web slang, but it's like, I can almost see that in places where it shouldn't be and not notice.
Yep. Yep, for sure. But I'll also, even to this day, will have a hard time with certain words or phrases because of my dyslexia. But if I hear someone else say it, I'm like, oh, my brain will then like process it correctly.
Yeah, it's like when they say it, you're like, that's not right. But if it's just your internal monologue reading it, you're like, oh, it's fine.
Which is, again, another tool I learned about from my like dyslexic advisor in college, where he was like, why don't we try this resource to like help you like read your textbooks so that you can like process your information better, and you can also use it for like papers and stuff like that.
So back to Grammarly and like ProWriter and stuff, because one of the things that always kind of like makes me feel a little bit iffy about them, because they've got like their AIs that kind of like look at what you're writing and tries to figure out like, oh, what word might you mean, or maybe you should use this instead to make your thing sound more exciting. So how do you feel about a tool like that, like going over your sex scenes and then like giving you recommendations for things that you should use instead?
I have not had, because I did have a couple of sex scenes in my dark fantasy, and when I did a very basic edit of that before I decided to shelve it, because I didn't want to be I have more sci-fi ideas, so I didn't want to introduce myself into traditional publishing as a fantasy writer. It wasn't actually, there wasn't a lot of like suggestions and stuff in those parts, and for this one I'm writing it primarily in Word now and not in Google, which my Google Docs is connected to the plugin for Grammarly. So I would be curious when I do finally like go to edit it and put it into either Grammarly itself or just edit it on Google Docs, what that would do. But I feel like that would also be not bad. I don't know, because some of the like spicier poems like that you have as my like poem alpha reader, it hasn't been that bad. I don't know. As I write more, my threshold for like weirdness has gone down, I guess, or like uncomfortability, depending on my situation and like where I'm at, and if anything, more like I have to be careful that like daddy YouTube doesn't get mad at me when I say certain things.
Yeah, talk about there's certain things. It's like, you can be very politically correct and scientifically accurate, but it's being
Yep.
explicit is something that YouTube isn't a fan of, which is why, especially when writing things on the Google Drive, because almost everything I write I've put on Google. And it's and I have to say, when it happened, I didn't really think a whole lot of it. But sometimes when you're in the middle of writing something, Google or Grammarly will actually, not so much even where it says, oh, maybe you should change what you wrote to this, but where Google tries to predict what you want to say. For like, you start typing a few words and it's like, do you want the rest of the sentence to say this? And it did
Oh,
that to
yeah.
me in one of those scenes, and was just like, do you mean blank 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 blank? And I was like, ah, yes, that is what I was going for. Tab, thank you. And then I thought about it and went, wait.
I do not have that enabled on my Google Docs. On my emails I do, and it will like autofill in stuff for my emails. But yeah, I feel like that would be interesting.
At least made me go, well, at least the AI is on my side enough right now to go, I think this would be spicy.
Hey, it also, I mean, like, if anything I've learned talking to a lot of writers, Google has like shit on all of us. Like, you just look at our search histories. I feel like I'm probably not as bad as other people, especially like horror and like thriller writers.
Oh yeah.
Like,
The things people like MatPat have had to Google in order to do
yes.
research on his videos. It's like, I'm surprised he's not on the no-fly list.
Yeah.
But there was a web series, a video series years ago, and it was called If Google Was a Guy.
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes, that was hilarious. There was just like a guy with a bunch of file cabinets and people coming into his office, sitting down saying, I want this. And just like the guy going, really? Really? It's like, yeah, thank goodness it's actually just a robot. It is, has the rule, do not be evil, which we all completely trust to follow that rule forever and always.
Yeah. I mean, I've talked about it with other writers. Like, with the amount of knowledge that writers have, if we collectively decided to do something about society, the amount of information we know could probably be extremely dangerous.
Well, it would in the very least be overwhelming to be able to pump out that much information. I mean, as it is, people already get information overload on a daily basis. But to pump out that much new information on a regular basis would, yeah, I could see that being able to steer a lot of people in certain directions.
Yeah, because I've definitely seen the videos of like some of the writers on YouTube who are, again, like horror, thriller, like mystery writers, where they're like, oh yeah, I know 20 different ways to like unalive somebody. And I'm just like, yeah, like if the FBI looked at my search history, there would be questions. And I was like, you know what, that's okay.
Yeah, you know what? That sometimes it's all in the name of research, but it's true. Like,
but it's weird.
yeah. I think one of the things because I used to post a lot of my writings on different websites, and since my background is in IT, I always prided myself on knowing a lot of stuff about tech, and so I got very insulted. Somebody came up to me, or I should say reviewed one of my chapters once, and was like, I like your story, but your technobabble is awful. you'd really need to consult somebody that knows this stuff better before you go and write about it. And I just felt like, I know my stuff really good. What are you saying? And
You
so I
were
felt
up here
offended.
and they needed you to be here.
Well, no. What happened was, is I thought they were talking about like my tech stuff, and so when I asked for more details, it turned out I made like just this one like glancing comment that it was actually, it turned out there was more of a chemistry issue. It was like the one thing in that story I made the
Ah.
comment that they used an ionization to make a material more flexible, and the guy that actually knew chemistry was like, no, ionizing a substance makes it brittle, not the. And I just remember I did like the table flip. I was like, the story's ruined. Everything's awful. It's the worst story ever. I need to go spend 3 years studying chemistry now before I ever write a sentence involving ions again.
Yeah. Yep, I've heard those things too. Luckily, I'm very much like, we're just gonna be general or chill, or like, I'm just making this up, it's my world, I don't care kind of situation. If anything, the only time I'm a little bit more like harder on myself is when I'm referencing mythology. Because of course, or like symbology, I'm just like, no, this has to be more accurate, like, to myself.
That's fascinating, because I would like, I understand where that's coming from. At the same time, I'm like, these are fields that you would think have so much more open to interpretation, that you can change them, like you have liberties to be able to change them around.
Mhm.
But obviously, there is so much lore that I can totally see wanting to be as accurate to the pre-existing lores as possible, which is really cool.
Yeah, like I have uh probably, when I finish this book and query it and I need to write something else, not necessarily the second book, but like write something else to get my mind off or to take a break. I have like a sci-fi mythology kind of thing idea, but I want to reference different mythologies, different cultures,
Yeah.
and I'm very just like, I have to be respectful even if I'm gonna like switch or like turn different things, because I think mythology is very important, and so many people do just kind of like squish it, unless you're very honest of like, I'm just doing an interpretation like you would with like a retelling or a reimagining.
Yeah, like I remember, I think my favorite assignment I ever had in high school English class was we had to create our own Greek myth story.
Of course, Greek.
And yeah, I mean, every mythology they teach you in high school is basically Greek. I can't think of anything in high school that they ever taught us about, like, Aztec and myths or anything like that.
Yeah.
But the big thing that I remember, just makes me go, gosh, I was such a geek dweeb
Oh
in
my god,
high
what? Yes, what is
school.
it?
Because the requirement of this myth that we were writing is that it had to be at least 2 pages.
Okay.
And I was always late to class anyway, so I'm running into class, and there's this girl that was kind of like the teacher's pet kind of person. She's like sitting next to the teacher, and she's talking about, and I'm told this afterwards, like literally the next day at lunch. I was like, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe what was happening right when you walked in. That this girl was there talking to the teacher, being like, well, I felt so inspired by this assignment that you gave us, that I just 2 pages wasn't enough to contain the inspiration that I had, and I had to get it all the way up to 5 pages for you. And this was really just like this, I felt the energy flowing, blah blah blah. And like right as she was saying all this, the bell rang, and I like ran into the class, and I was like, I'm sorry I was late, and I dumped this 30-page myth story on the teacher's desk that was
Oh my God.
literally twice as big as the rest of the class's essays combined.
And the teacher had a heart attack.
The teacher was just like, Tony, no, I'm supposed to read these. It's just like, I don't care. Here, you passed. Go, get out of here.
Ooh, somebody is. Big Mac is saying, Bungle, what do you mean you were a geek just popping in to have a good night? Oh, it's Augie.
That's Augie. Hi, Augie. I can't believe you're up this late, but hey, thanks for joining me over here.
He hearted my tweet earlier. That's probably what he saw.
Oh, awesome. Well, yes, I've not just was a geek dweeb, but will continue to be one forever.
Yes. I totally understand that, and I just having like my parents as teachers, I can just feel the pain of them, of your poor teacher being like, which child should I murder?
Yeah, I mean, I was one of those kids too. Like that was early on in my high school career, but I got much more jaded because I would just always, whenever teachers were like, "It has to be a page," I'd be like, "That's it." where other students would be complaining, going, "Oh,
Yeah.
can't we do like half a page?" I would like already have 2 pages done by the time class was over, and then I would. Anything longer, I would put little notes in like the middle of page 3, be like, if you are reading this, like write this word on the side of the paper of page 1.
You're like testing your teacher.
Yeah, and guess what? They always failed.
Oh my gosh. I got more of that way towards the end of school, but that was after I had a laptop and I was learning a little bit more tools of like how to be able to write and deal with my learning disability. And I had a great English teacher who was very supportive of my liking to write, but then my struggle of I can't spell and I hate everything I put because I can't spell and it looks like garbage, handwriting it, and really learning how to use like Word and a laptop is really what helped me.
Oh, absolutely. The advantage of that as a learning tool over the permanence that it feels like when you are actually writing with a pen, that you're, because I hated that too, that feeling of if I messed up, that I either had to completely trash an entire page or make it look awful by having all these crossouts for everything that I either misspelled or didn't like. And I'm in complete agreement that it made me not want to write until I had a keyboard. And once there was like a keyboard in my hands, it was from that point on, it was on.
Yeah. All right. Well, do you want to start another sprint?
Let's do it.
So we're going to do 20-minute sprint. Is that good?
All right. That sounds like a plan.
Okay. So do you want to do a nature-esque kind of sprint or a cute anime boy?
I mean, I'm always down for a cute anime boy.
All right, we'll do the cute anime boy. It's also like so what? Okay, I don't know what that pop-up was. This anime character is also like super general, but it's just, I don't know, it's just cute. in all forms. So.
Yep. All right. All right. 20 minutes and 1 second.
Yeah, I like when they give you like a 1 second or like the 3 seconds
Just
for
enough
people.
time to switch windows.
Yes. And a lot of the timers I'm using today are all like writers that make timers for the specific thing, which is nice because we just recently had like our own version of like an ad cop apocalypse kind of situation. A lot of author tube people got in trouble for music and bull doo doo like that. So we're all starting to be more into each other's stuff and less trusting of other people out in
No,
the
I
YouTube.
was in the same boat. Bunch of stuff that I made has a bunch of strikes, so I guess not really strikes, but at least demonetizations, even though I don't monetize for music that was used that was supposed to be free to use, but then YouTube was like, no.
Oh, thank you, Augie, for subscribing before we go on mute.
Augie, thank you so much for subscribing to Dolores.
All right, 20 minutes. Really getting some work done. All right.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, and go. All done.
There we go. Oh man, I got into that one for a bit.
Yeah, that timer unfortunately does have like music, and even though I do trust the person, the author tuber, because I have streamed with her before, I don't know what type of music she's using. So I just don't trust the music.
Such a shame. No more esoteric anime boy with butterflies.
We can do him again later.
All right.
So how did you do?
Well, I think I'm laying down the first hints that everything is not as it seems, that there is the scary things happening just below the surface of the story.
Scary.
It's like I feel like
am
that's important in like a scary story. You can't just jump into things being scary. They have to start off a little bit normal with just a hint that maybe bad things happening aren't exactly an accident.
Yeah. I am not a horror reader. I mean, I also don't watch horror, and but like everything I've heard, especially as a in YA, there is like a huge surge recently of horror, and a lot of specifically traditionally published authors. Not that there's that many on YouTube, but the ones that are now coming out with like vlogs and stuff now that books are getting either announced or published. Of like vlogs of them writing these books, and them all talking about similar things, like how to set up this stuff, and I'm just like, interesting. No, but interesting.
Oh, for some reason, I've always just sort of been a fan of the things that are just a little on the weird side, enough uncanniness to be creepy. And yeah, Halloween, like, I was really, really sad that I was still in the middle of unpacking because Halloween's like my favorite holiday. I wanted to do something like set up a haunted house, have, like a big thing in the neighborhood and a whole lot of candy and stuff to pass out. And this year it didn't happen. I just had to put up a sign instead saying, "So sorry, kids. There's nothing here this year, but come back next year, please. There will be." There will be so much next year.
Oh my gosh. Somehow I can see that.
For sure, any kids that saw that were like, "Oh, I don't care about next year. We wanted candy today."
I know. I feel though that neighborhood would probably have good candy.
I think so. Yeah, the neighborhood we just moved into has some of the people out here. They decorated so cool for Halloween. There's a guy just like 2 houses up from me. You couldn't even tell there was a house there anymore. It was just surrounded by like ghostly sheets and pumpkins, and even his truck was like turned into a skeleton-looking thing. I was like,
oh my gosh.
Wow, that is dedication.
Go for it. Like, why not? People go all out for Christmas, and there's all these intricate stuff. I mean, the city, that's not too far from me that you live in. We have a whole like Christmas neighborhood that's like a whole spectacle. So.
Oh yeah, I love it. The right around Christmas, they even hire the horse-drawn carriages to take people on tours through there. It's crazy.
Yeah, so why not for Halloween? Why not?
I'm definitely all for that. I would love to like actually live in a neighborhood that became known as the Halloween neighborhood. That would be
oh my
great.
God, that would be awesome. There's this house that on our way like to and from my mom's work, that I noticed last year like went all out and like decorated for Christmas, and they had stuff on their like roof in their garage, and it was tied to one of like the local stations that was playing Christmas music, so the lights would blink along with the music. And I was seeing them put up stuff for Halloween, and they don't have anything tied to any stations because there's no like, you know, good Halloween music. But
Right? Just the
they have
Monster
like a
Mash.
whole show still, and me and mom were passing. Uh, was it tonight or Friday? I don't know, one of those days. But we were looking at it, and we were like, oh my gosh, they're just the extra person in the neighborhood. But then it's like, but their electric bills must be huge.
Oh my gosh, yeah, like there's a YouTube channel that I've always wanted to copy that for Christmas they do like their whole house like lights up in sync with the music that they play on like these big
Hmm.
loudspeakers, and they draw a big crowd in front of the house, and I was like, that just looks like it'd be so cool, but oh, that's such a headache trying to like get every bit of the house to be on like a different kind of LED circuit to light up it separately from everything else.
That just sounds too complicated.
It is very complicated, but it looks like it would be so much fun.
Well, I didn't get too much work done because my husband came home. So, but yeah, I'm trying to close out this like scene slash chapter, and start the next chapter, which is going to be drama filled and angsty filled.
Drama and angst. What kind of like what is the overarching purpose for
So,
going all drama?
so if you watch, what was it? Oh, what was the show called? Hot in Cleveland, I think it was. With Betty White was in it.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they had like an episode where the one English woman, her visa was expiring, so she had to do like the same thing where she had to like marry somebody. Well, usually, and this happens in like inter-country marriages, like you have a visit later after like some time has gone by, just to make sure that you're like actually married and it wasn't a sham and it's not like a lie and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So this next maybe 2 chapters ish is going to be that, where like someone from the Confederacy is going to come to the station to like check up on them.
Like, are
So,
you really a couple?
because they've done things, because the captain, or not captain because it's not a ship, but the commander of the station has been helping them make things look as best as it can for the Confederacy, because the station is its own like self-governing thing, but it still has to like follow the rules
Yeah.
within the Confederacy. Like it's not attached to any specific planet. So they're not happy with the situation anyways, because they're almost like their own self-governing planet, but they also don't have like resources that like a planet would be, where they could just be like, like the Swiss, and be like, I don't care. Like they can't do that. So
It's more like a deep space station.
yeah. So there's this whole play nice of like, we don't want her to be deported, so we have to do this, but then we have to also make it look good and realistic, and and then part of the drama just also attaches to the physiology of the main character, and sort of some of the love interest, but really the main character, where pheromones and stuff are be a big part of the angstiness.
Oh, that makes sense. Because, yeah, if you have, like, especially, like, how would pheromones work across species? Do they work, or do they have different effects?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah, especially because the like main character I have, being that he's like a half a species, a lot of the like pheromone problems are actually pheromone problems that go with females of that half of his species, but part of the like mixing has part of the mixing has to do with, even though he's male, he's being influenced by these pheromones like he's female, but because he's male, like they work slightly different. So it's fun.
Because yeah, like that kind of like became a an interesting topic in like especially fiction, like fantasy fiction stories, like anything that dealt with what's there's a word for it when you have like a fantasy setting and they're not animals but they're not people. You have like the the species that are sort of like humanoid anthropomorphic creatures, yeah, where there was like, it was really big in fantasy to talk about pheromones in those stories for a while.
Yeah, because his half that's having this pheromone problem is greatly their species is slightly influenced by like Vulcans, where like Vulcans have like the 7-year itch, like Captain Kirk says. And like sex is like more of like a necessity kind of thing, not necessarily like a driving force for them. And their species is very similar, where like they evolved. Not that any of this is in the book, but it's all in my notes. Or they evolved to a point where their species was actually like in danger of becoming like extinct, kind of, because people weren't, kind of like Japan's problem, where like people aren't getting together and making babies. So it's
there's
like
so many other things to do. We've got a whole universe to explore. Who's got time to raise kids?
Yeah, so like the biology, like Mother Nature decided to like almost like if like they started mutating, sort of, where it's like, now we're gonna force you to have this situation that will make you have like more intercourse, and relationships will be more of a thing now, and so
like, darn it, get to boinking or you will explode.
Exactly. In some kind of ways, like especially for this main character, it's male, his mom is that half species and she's trying to help him, but at the same time they're all just in like uncharted territory, because it doesn't happen to men from her planet, female situation, like.
So they're like, this is odd. So yeah, especially like, because that's always like one of the really interesting things in like mixing like an anthropomorphic kind of species with the concept of gender, identity, that you might not have as much choice as to who your body is attracting, like especially like because the pheromones are meant to attract a specific gender or sect of the population, and you're like, even if I'm not attracted to them, they're the ones that are now following me around, because it's like I either have it's almost like the Omega verse, where you have like the Omegas that have to like take suppressants.
Yeah, I did definitely take references from that, because I do have him doing that, where it's like, in order to control some of the situation, he has to take suppressants, because if not, things will happen.
No, absolutely. Like the Omegaverse isn't like my favorite genre by any means, but I do really like the ones that explore a little bit more of the social aspect of what it's like having to actually live in a world where this is like, the common thing where, the where you can't be as taboo about sex because literally it's ingrained into the public mind because of these roles that everybody presents by a
Yeah.
certain age.
Yeah, there's no like shunning about having sex because that's just natural.
Oh, you know what that reminds me of? I haven't thought of this anime in a long time, but while we're on this conversation, there was an anime called Loveless years ago,
I feel
and
like I know
it
or I've heard
the
this.
there was the fascinating thing on the society of this anime was that virgins had cat ears. And then once they lost their virginity, they also lost their cat ears and then just became normal looking humans.
Okay.
And so, but what was fascinating is that this made it very apparent who was still a virgin. Like there
Mhm.
was no like, you've still got your ears. And that was very much how like, people kind of like they thought it was really weird if somebody made it into like their upper 20s or 30s and they still had their ears.
Interesting. Very interesting. I feel like I always find that stuff interesting. Like I had read, would it be considered a hentai? I don't know if it would be considered a hentai, but it was like an online web thing where something similar to that, where they had like a tattoo or something, and then like your mark would disappear once you lost your virginity. And I feel like those are all interesting points, but at the same time, I feel like it just is wrong. Because I feel like it feeds into the like purity culture, but it fetishizes it instead of like demonizes it like other things do.
Like I said, what I find fascinating is when it does take like the social aspect, like how does society deal with this kind of outward representation that there is no hiding, like you said, like does it go full purity, like, oh my gosh, we now have absolute proof that you didn't make it to marriage before losing your virginity, or does it just become that society goes, oh well, you reach an age and this is now expected that that you're going to whatever mark, whatever thing is you've probably got about a year or two before you lose that.
Yeah.
And everybody's going to know. There's no hiding it from everyone. And you're going to come home one day and your mom's just going to be like, oh, today was the day. Okay.
I didn't even think about that part too, but yeah. Well, I know you want to leave soon. Do you want to do a 15-minute sprint to close out your thoughts for what you're writing?
Sure, we can do that.
Okay.
Like, what do we have for the last sprint?
We're gonna have a cute little dinosaur.
A dinosaur. Oh, it's a shame Augie already had to leave. He's got a great dinosaur song. Oh my gosh, it's Woolly Yoshi on an airplane.
She has a lot of she makes these dinosaurs. She crochets them, and she has another longer, I think it's a 25-minute timer, where like it's animated, where she's like stop motion animation almost.
Oh, that's brilliant.
It's so cute, and it's slightly distracting, but it's cute. All right, let's do the 15-minute sprint. I almost forgot what we were doing for a second there. All right.
The power of the
And
woolly dinosaur.
exactly. 1, 2, 3, and go. All right, all done.
Okay. So, if I wasn't on a list before, I certainly am now.
Did you look up something?
I might have been looking up like how to make a bathtub death look like an accident. So that's
Welcome to the Strange Writer Ashamed internet history.
all the search history is like, why were you looking that up? Research.
For a
Just
book.
research.
Well, I finished the chapter or the scene,
Oh, very cool.
so that was good. And I was debating about, I started the next chapter, but I was debating about continuing, but I am tired and I was going to like caffeine myself to keep going because I wasn't sure how, actually, if we were going to go extra time or not, but no, I think we're just going to end it with you.
Sorry, everybody. It's my fault. I'm not as late night of a person as I used to be.
That's fine. I mean, I was awake at like 5:30 this morning. and,
Yep, me too.
Took a nap in preparation, which wasn't as long of a nap as I was planning, but all right. Well, do you want to do like an outro kind of
Well,
thing?
First, let me just say thank you so much for inviting me to hang out with you on
Yeah.
this stream today, getting Nano going with you. It's been super exciting. I love talking shop and writing and stuff with you. So, anytime you'd like to have me on again, please feel free to send an invite out.
Yeah, of course.
And to everyone else out there, I'm Bungle, part of Blunder and Bungle, and thank you all too for tuning in and watching us here.
Yes, and if you're watching the VOD, all of Bungle stuff will be down below, at least to the main channel, and then you can find things from there. They have a Twitch that will be coming back soon.
Not normally in a
and
supply closet.
yes, if you want to see their backlist, you can check that out there. And yeah, if you want to see more streams, anything like that, if you're on the main channel, remember all VODs are on second channel, not main channel. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Greatly appreciate it, and we will see you next time. Not Bungle, but I will see you next time. Next stream will be on Friday for games. All right. Bye.
Bye.